Now then, it's Burnsy, and welcome to our regular Curiosity podcast, the CuriosityCast. Every episode, we take questions asked by members of the public in Hull and try to get them the best answers from the very best brains in the city of Hull. Not all questions are all about Hull, and they can be about whatever you want to discover. This episode, we're catching up with what's happening in Hull with regard to the public realm and other significant works. There's always plenty to go at, and here to get us fully up to date with what's going on and when, and indeed why, is our man with his lug hole plugged into the network in Hull, Angus Young. Angus, nice to see you. Thanks very much for coming on the CuriosityCast again. Last time we discussed the A63 and we both thought it seems to be going all right.
Yeah.
And now it isn't. What's the latest?
Yeah, the last time it was all scheduled to end in spring this year. And then just before Christmas, unwelcome Christmas present announcement by National Highways saying that the completion has been delayed and we're 12 months further back than we were intending to be. And so now it's spring 2026, which obviously after 5 years is another 12 months to stomach for everybody concerned. It's, as I say, an unwanted Christmas present and more chaos and disruption and impact for everybody in Hull.
Yeah, and I suspect every citizen of Hull turned to the mate or the partner or whatever or whoever was next to them and said, I told you it'd flood. Told you they would have to try to go underground.
Yeah, I think we're all construction engineers at heart, aren't we? DIY. Yeah, the last time we were here, we discussed about the ground conditions. Everybody knows the ground conditions, even if they're not experts. They're well aware that Hull, as we discussed last time, is either a bowl of blancmange, a bowl of gravy, whatever you want to describe it as. And as we said, sinking a big underpass capable of carrying a dual carriageway umpteen metres into that bowl of gooey mess, it was always going to be tricky. And so it's proved.
One thing I haven't seen, and it might be I've just missed it, but has anybody put a figure on how much extra this is costing now, a year's delay?
Well, the Castle Street project website, which is official National Highways, is still sticking to the 355 million. It's a little tag on the top there. So they're saying the price of it hasn't changed. I can't imagine that's going to be the case if you've got another 12 months on top of things. And I think factored into that, and possibly we'll never know, all the various contractual ins and outs of liability for extra costs falling on different people's shoulders because of the overrun. That's going to be bound up in, as I say, the commercial potential litigation, or otherwise. I haven't heard of any at the moment. I suspect that won't happen, if it does, until after it's all finished. But I would say there's a reasonable chance that there's going to be a bit of a legal fisticuffs afterwards as to who's responsible for picking up the extra tab. Yeah,
and are they definitely guaranteeing it'll be done in the extra year?
Well, there's no cast iron guarantee. Right. They're saying they expect it to be finished in spring 2026, but that's what they were saying up until the day before the announcement in December. So shifting sands under the feet and shifting sands
literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
I bet they do it like 3 weeks early and claim to be superheroes. So.
Well, I mean, hopefully everybody's cracking on with it. They get the weather this year, if that's another factor. I think you've only really got to go down to somewhere like Commercial Street, just outside of the Whittington Cat there, and look at the junction there, and you realise that that's nowhere near completion, never mind an underpass on the actual dual carriageway. And there's a lot of work to be done just on simply that sort of connection, and then you've obviously got the road across from Ferronsway to be built on with that now. But even before Christmas and before the announcement, if you actually looked at some of the other things, they were still some way off. And the announcement did actually include a reference to the fact that there's been just one or two delays on different elements of the scheme, means that knock-on effective delays elsewhere. And so I suppose it's a very complicated jigsaw putting it all together, but if various pieces are being chucked in the air or sunk into the ground, then outer pieces of that jigsaw don't fit either.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you wonder whether we're going to live to see the benefits. Do you know, like, if there's a benefit deficit, because the amount of time it's cost us is sitting in traffic throughout the city compared to what it saves us. If it's cost us 9 months of our lives, but we only see the benefit of like 10-minute increments. I'm sure. Sorry, it's the way my mind works.
This is producer Dave. Regular listeners to the CuriosityCast will enjoy producer Dave's forays into the curiosity. I enjoy it too because your mind works in a different. But I know what I do know what you mean. Yeah,
If it saves us 10 minutes a journey, but it's cost us 70 days, are we going to live long enough for it to be worth it? I know we're handing it on to future generations.
And back to sort of maybe an economic reality. There's also the economic impact, which is probably impossible to calculate as well, but. The knock-on effect of trade in terms of maybe delivery to the ports and all that sort of thing, but also the surrounding businesses and just getting around. And I can't imagine it's been easy to be a trader on the other side of the A63 around the fruit market area because of all this. And equally in the city centre, it's a disincentive for you to come into town, isn't it? If you're coming in from a certain direction. So that knock-on effect. So if you see we've seen a small restaurant close in Hull in the city centre just recently. Is that, part of the equation? Where people just aren't coming in because they don't be bothered with the hassle. And
which restaurant were you thinking of?
The one down Paragon Arcade, the Hispanus.
Because the Al Porto went, which was in Warehouse 13, didn't it?
Yeah, for slightly different reasons that day.
Right, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Court related.
We'll not dabble in that. The budget doesn't stretch to good lawyers or any lawyers on the CuriosityCast. I guess we'll move on swiftly. Andy in HU12, which is Preston, not the one in Lancashire. Why does Drypool Bridge need to close for so long? How long's it closed for and why?
Right, another mechanical mishap perhaps, I don't know. It's 6 months closure, it's closing in April, I understand, hopefully reopening in October if everything goes according to plan, but obviously, as we've just said, sometimes those plans go awry. With Drypool Bridge, it was a deterioration of the concrete support columns underneath the bridge.
Right.
That was spotted in an inspection last year. These inspections take place on a fairly regular basis. There's different types of inspection for different bridge structures in Hull. Some are done a visual inspection from a little bit of a distance away. Some are closer up, depending on the importance of the bridge, and the frequency as well is determined by those factors too. With Drypool Bridge, there's still a question mark in my mind anyway, as to what has been described as a rapid deterioration happened between the inspections on the bridge. Of the deterioration of these concrete supports to the point where the weight-bearing capability of that bridge is put into question. I think it's a 40-ton weight limit at the moment.
Right.
And obviously, if they put a weight limit on a very important bridge that takes a lot of heavy traffic, then that skews the city's road network once again and puts heavy lorries in places where they shouldn't do, or maybe overload somewhere else. So there's a question mark that hasn't really been fully resolved about that. There's been a couple of reasons put forward. One is the marine environment, which basically means it's a bridge sitting in a river which is salty and it's damp and the corrosion happens. The bridge was opened in 1961, so the concrete is as old as me, and that might be crumbling away. The bridge.
You're looking all right, though, in fairness. You're looking fine, distinguished gents. It's not a problem.
It's been reinforced.
Yeah.
Had to work on it for 7 months.
But you mentioned reinforced. It is reinforced concrete we're talking about under the bridge, and that's gone. So why has that gone much faster in a shorter period of time? Bigger brains than me might suggest it could be climate change in terms of the river being slightly higher.
Right.
And then we'll go to the age-old question of silt and mud in the river. There's more of it than ever before. If you look at it at low tide, there's no dredging going on. The river traffic has declined steeply over the years. And so effectively the silt is rising and collecting, and there's more of the bridge mechanics sitting in silt than there ever was. So is there an impact on that? That's what ultimately did for Scott Street Bridge many years ago.
Oh, right, and that's still...
Well, it's non-existent now. It's taken down. Yeah.
What effect will Drypool closing for that long have? It's just mainly on traffic then, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, we'll relate back to the A63. Obviously, the ideal scenario would be to time the work on Drypool Bridge away from any works on the A63. And obviously, if the A63 had finished early this year, then they could have got on a Drypool Bridge and there wouldn't be the inevitable interaction between the two. But because of the urgency of the situation with Drypool Bridge, as I understand it, if they'd left it any longer than what they have, and as I say, they're going to try and address it from April onwards, but if it had been left until next year, then that integrity of the weight limit would have probably been irretrievable. And so really they have to get on with it now. So the delays on the A63 do have a knock-on effect to certain schemes, and the thinking of certain schemes. I'm sure the City Council would have liked to have done Drypool Bridge at the conclusion of the A63, but I think because of the condition of the bridge, they have been left with no alternative.
It's not a good picture, is it, road-wise?
No.
Get a bike, Dave.
Well, but you still can't bike over the bridge, can you?
Yeah, well, true.
And
There's no pedestrian access, no
canoe.
nothing. No, well, I'm still angry about jetpacks. They had them at the Olympics in 1974. How come we've not got them?
You can't move a wagon load of stuff on a jetpack. But anyway.
Well, I mean, a jetpack may come in handy one day to actually get over the River Hull, because we've got further up the river, we've got Chapman Street Bridge, which has been closed since 2020 to travel another road traffic bridge, and is still at least 2 to 3 years away from...
That one's been so long, you just forget about it. You forget it's closed.
Yeah, but if you're looking to actually drive across or jetpack across the River Hull, your options suddenly become even more limited when Drypool Bridge is out of the action for a while.
So there'll be a day in April, don't bother going into wherever you need to go. Just,
that plan to build a massive flyover into the river is looking better all the time, isn't it? Yeah. Maybe we should have gone for that.
The lagoon and everything. I like that.
No, not the lagoon. Somebody had a plan, didn't they, to do a big...
The plan was the post-war plan. It was a fixed bridge, because, of course, you almost forget that Maiton Bridge is actually an opening bridge as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't open so much because there isn't so much road traffic these days.
It came right from the east, right across the river, didn't it, on sticks, right across.
Yeah.
And it was going to, like you see them in Sweden and Japan and places like that, It was going to be like 3 miles long into the river.
It was the post-war rebuilding.
So what was, I'm thinking of Tim Ricks's plan, which was to create a lagoon.
This was called the Abercrombie plan, which was named after one of the architects commissioned to do it.
But it would have been vastly expensive, obviously.
Well, I heard at a discussion about this a couple of months ago that a ballpark estimate to build something like that, and of course you'd then have a bridge on sticks, which would be very visual, and you'd obviously need a big land take to do it. Closely packed buildings around the River Hull, as we know, as you go up there, would be in the region of 70 to 80 million pounds. And then you're talking about the same scale of actually getting it done, and these things don't happen overnight.
We shall move on, because that one is not going to happen. We'll sort of stay in that general area, but not talk bridges. Jamie Bransome says, will anything ever happen on the old Rank Mill site?
Well, again, that's right, if you like, between Drypool Bridge and the A63. So it's an interesting site. It's been earmarked for redevelopment. Obviously, the old mill is now gone. There was an archaeology dig there last summer, and it's ready to go for redevelopment. The council have yet to announce whether they've actually secured a development partner who would actually build on it. It's council-owned land. They will provide, if you like, the template for somebody to go on and redevelop it. So if and when that announcement of the lead developer partner comes along, then we'll know more. But I think last thing I heard was somewhere between 200 and 250 homes. They're keeping some of the buildings, or looking to keep some of the buildings, the most obvious one being the Grade 2 listed boy shed that used to belong to Trinity House, that's down there. That sort of sits in the middle of that strip of land. One side is the old mill site, and then that land sort of snakes down the river to the Scale Lane Bridge, which actually, again, is under repair at the moment.
Yeah, it's closed, isn't it?
Yeah. And so hopefully something will happen on that. But again, as in with a lot of things in Hull, it's on Blamongy land, so whatever's built there will need deep piling. and B, it's taken a lot of time to actually, get going.
And you're not going to do it when the roads, because you're not going to want to move construction materials and lorries and everything like that when bridges are closed and everything.
Well, I was speaking to Councillor Mike Ross, the leader of the City Council, yesterday, and asking him that very question. And he said that he's had a meeting with National Highways team who are working on the A63 following the announcement, and he is optimistic that various schemes that have been held in abeyance, if you like, either voluntarily or otherwise, because of the A63, and the East Bank villages, perhaps one of them, will be able to proceed as planned this year, despite the extension of the works on the A63.
Well, let's hope it happens. Let's go city centre, James in Willoughby in HU10. What does it mean for the Albion Square development now all the asbestos has been removed? Where are we at with that? That's a big project.
It's a very big project. Again, it's another long-standing saga. The removal of the asbestos has got to be good news after all this time. Mm-hmm. And I think that is been the big hold-up on the works, because it takes a long time, and it's obviously a complex, skillful, technical job to do. Now they've got to get on with demolishing the building and again creating that flat bit of land to develop on. I understand there's a report on the next steps going to the next cabinet meeting at the end of the month at the council. It is a council project, and that will give more details as to where we are. We've got a health building that's already going up in one corner of the site that wasn't originally planned, but then at least they could get on with something when the opportunity to deliver that came along. So we shall see, but I think it's a positive step forward that the asbestos is gone. Again, developer interest has got to be key on that, because the council, in building it, it's going to have to be somebody else who's going to build it.
There's a lot up in the air. This is Angus Young, our guest on the latest episode of the CuriosityCast. I'll just remind you that you can send us your own question about anything you want, and we'll answer it in either the next podcast or in the content you can find on the Curiosity social feeds. So you can message us at www.curiosityhull.co.uk or find Curiosity Hull on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube and Blue Sky. Here's another big site, still occupied at the moment, but Alan in Gypsyville in HU4 wants to know, is there any news on what will happen to the Smith & Nephew site?
Well, again, Councillor Ross in our discussion yesterday said that he was optimistically confident that the progress on what's called the Western Docklands scheme will not be disrupted by the A63, even though the A63 runs right along one side of it, and part of that Western Docklands area, which is basically the English Street area, is occupied by National Highways at the moment as a sort of big works depot on the old Arco site. And when National Highways eventually, fingers crossed, finish the scheme, then that site will become vacant for redevelopment, owned by the council at the moment. So there is a sort of, a development space there. Smith & Nephew announced last year that they won't be moving lock, stock and barrel to Melton after all. And whilst there will be a development out in Melton, that part of the Smith & Nephew operation will remain in Hull. And
on the same site? On
that site, yeah.
Right.
Not all of it, as I understand. Again, it's a sort of a wait and see what happens to that. But hopefully, according to Councillor Ross, again, optimistic moving forward.
And none of it's listed, is it there? Not the big sheds, but is any of the older buildings listed?
Well, I think the pub at the front is certainly the Alexandria Hotel. The rest of it is very industrial, some interesting little nooks and crannies around there, if you're into your local history. But again, quite a big area to redevelop, with empty buildings being created by the Smith & Nephew move. As I said, the former Arco site is quite a big site on Waverley Street, which will front directly onto the A63. And then there's all the suggested tweaking that was going on to make that whole area slightly more attractive. It's got a bit of a rundown industrial feel, but there is that land that is either side of the A63 that lends itself as from a transport route when everything's back to normal as a good place to get in and out. That's why I suppose the Smith & Nephew factory developed there. It's on that transport route.
Can we have any great confidence in it, Angus? Because when we think just slightly more out of town, but not that far away, when we think of the now infamous Lord Line building and the Seafish Authority building. I was down there for a walk the other day.
Good luck with that.
And it's, you know, that's not happened for years. I know there are complicating factors, but, you know, will any of this ever happen?
I think if you're a glass half full person, then you're clinging on desperately to your pint hoping not to spill it at the moment. I think we've got to face facts that Hull is economically challenged as a city. If you do go anywhere else, even locally, you know, York, Leeds, you do get that impression that things are moving, there's development, and there's big challenges in Hull, and it's not just the ground conditions, it's the whole economy, it's the value of land, rate of return on investment, etc., and so forth. And these schemes do seem to sort of pile up one big list. We keep going through them, and again, if we're brutally honest, the last big sort of redevelopment in the city centre was Ferrens Way, St Stephen's, you know, which is a long time ago now. And the revamp of the railway station, and not a lot really has happened on a big scale since then, other than sort of the redevelopment of the fruit market, which leaned a lot on public sector support. Yes, there was private sector investment from an existing Hull company, Wakeland, but we don't seem to, as a city, attract or be able to attract very easily out of town investment.
We need a city that smells of brick dust and builders' cleavage, don't we? That's what we want. You put that on the signs.
You, mate. We don't know about your personal hopes and wishes.
But you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
It's probably too graphic a picture for
I think the official polite one is cranes on the skyline, isn't it?
Yes, well, probably.
Well, we haven't got any cranes on the skyline at the moment.
There must be one story you got that isn't absolutely depressing. Was there anything else?
Well, this from Vicky in HU8 on Long Hill. Actually, I'll come back to Vicky's question, because even I think that one's not going to happen. So we'll try.
Sorry, Vicky.
We'll try and find some joy with Andy in HU9 Preston Road area of Hull. Does the delay to the Maritime Museum mean all of the other maritime projects are being put back? It's gone back a year, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, again, it's another delay, unfortunately, so that glass half full is looking suspiciously empty. But yeah, Maritime Museum was scheduled to open this year, as I understand it. It's now next year. I think I saw somewhere there was a very brief mention of issues with the roof or something like that had to be dealt with. I don't know.
It's beautiful though. The bits we've seen is amazing.
Yeah. Yes, we'll all say it's been worth the wait when it reopens. But I do come back to the fact that it has been it will be an extra wait. But
does it mean everything's been put back here?
I'm not aware of what the issues are, if any issues, with the other parts of the programme. I went past the Spurn Lightship the other day, which has obviously now been refurbished and is on Hull Marina, but there's still a big safety barrier preventing
it's not open,
access. I've been told it's going to be opening, you know, in better weather and in the spring, summer, that sort of thing. Let's hope it is, because something needs to happen somewhere. And then they've still got moving the Arctic Corsair to its berth on the River Hull. And to be perfectly honest, I've lost track of the timetable on that as to when it's supposed to be. I was expecting it to be this year sometime, and we're only in the early part of February. So let's be kind and generous and look forward to that actually happening this year on schedule.
Well, fingers crossed.
And Queen's Gardens as well.
And merrily tripping through Queen's Gardens without tripping over all the works that are going on there.
Yeah. Which presumably shouldn't have been affected by the Maritime Museum.
No, the separate bills and separate contractors. And
so when's that due?
Apart from the weather, I would have thought that there shouldn't be issues with Queen's Gardens, other than the fact that it's, as we said before, costing 3 times as much as it was originally intended to be.
Right. Okay. Which the ratepayers will have to pay.
Lots of ums.
There is. Yeah.
There must be one good story. One happy thing.
I'm going to ask Angus to give us one happy sort of ending if possible.
Put the pressure on him.
I know, but I'm not sure there's a happy ending on this one. Vicky in HUA on Long Hill, I was clinging to something with the Maritime Museum because that is happening. Vicky wants to know, where are we with the KC Stadium, or the MKM Stadium as it is now, redevelopment?
Well, those plans have been talked about for quite a while. They haven't obviously entered the public domain yet. Speaking to the chap who was the project director on that a couple of weeks ago, in fact before Christmas, he was talking about it being a phased scheme in terms of planning applications going in for different elements of it at different times. Obviously, the football club who he is contracted to work as the project director on the wider redevelopment. And of course, it's not just the football club, it's effectively the stadium management company, who, yes, is the same as the football club in terms of ownership. He intimated that the first phase application for solar panel development in part of that whole area of land that is around the stadium, not necessarily on the roof, but potentially on the roof, but was going to be hopefully submitted before Christmas. That hasn't materialised. Obviously, there's lots of work involved in planning applications, and there was the complications on a football club level of change of managers and distractions maybe caused by that. So I think I'm looking forward, and maybe on an optimistic note, looking forward to those plans being submitted, at least for consideration for approval, and that's the next stage in the approval process, with the council saying yes or no to them. Council obviously will be partners anyway because they own a lot of the land around there. And that first phase application, as I say, for solar panels on some of the land surrounding the stadium, if that gets the go-ahead, that may get the encouragement to the rest.
All right, I take it as actually quite encouraging.
You're trying to be positive.
No, I am. But they've got actually a project manager, project director, which the owner of Hull City is employing. That's something that lends a level of seriousness to it.
Yeah.
I mean, the phones may be going off in the clutching at straws department, but I am, trying to find something positive here.
I think what we're all going to take away from this episode is that very little is moving forward and a lot of stuff's getting put back.
Yeah. I have got
have you got a positive?
I have got a positive.
Let's end on a happy note, Angus.
I have a positive, and let's end with filling that glass back up again. Ideal heating, or ideal boilers, or whatever they call themselves these days. I think it's just ideal, but it's certainly not ideal standard, which is next door. But yes, ideal boilers, we'll call them, on National Avenue, and not too far from where I live, so I see this quite regularly. They've got a big research and development facility that is now looking 99% complete, certainly from the outside. That's been built on National Avenue, a very big development. I think off the top of my head it was 14 million. Big investment. It's effectively a national centre of excellence, as a very established Hull company that originally started building radiators to put in people's homes and businesses have moved to or moving to future technology. So we're talking about all types of different alternative energy efficient heating rather than just boilers, gas-fired boilers. So energy source heat pumps, they're looking at that sort of technology. And that building, as far as I can tell, as a layman walking past or driving past, is nearing completion. That will mean new jobs. It'll raise Hull's profile as an R&D centre of excellence. And let's not forget, we've got Reckitt's within R&D centre. Even Smith & Nephew that we were talking about earlier, there is an R&D facility down at the Smith & Nephew plant. So you've got three big brands there, if you like, all with R&D. And the Ideal Boilers one is going to be the newest of the lot, probably one of the slickest of the lot in terms of technology and moving forward and re-establishing or cementing a company's long roots in the city, providing new jobs, and from a green energy point of view, going hopefully in the right direction.
It seems appropriate, given the company we were talking about. You've given us a warm glow there, Angus, so well done to you. It's a nice way to
it's
end.
Not a bad ending, but I'm going to cheer myself up with a biscuit. That's what really works for me. Yeah,
right. Okay,
that's far more.
That's not going to change the economy in Hull,
no,
is it?
It made me feel momentarily better.
Just the one.
Right.
Well, we'll see if you take one on your way out.
Okay.
I shall try and wrap this up in a professional manner. You can check out Angus's work for Curiosity, and indeed my work, and various other fine, talented people in the city of Hull if you check out curiosityhull.co.uk. That's it for this episode of the Curiosity Cast. My thanks to Dave and to Angus Young. He'll be back as soon as there are more on any of these topics, so we'll see you in a couple of years, Angus. Remember, you can ask questions and seek answers on the Curiosity website, www.curiosityhull.co.uk, or follow and friend us on the socials, where we're Curiosity Hull on all the main feeds. We'll be back very soon with more quality answers to whatever question you'd like to ask.